I still remember the moment like it happened. In slow motion, I walked through the towering glass doors of NeuroSync, my company, my empire, only to find a line of security guards waiting for me. Their blank stares were unreadable, but their stance told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't welcome here anymore. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe one of the junior executives had overstepped their authority. Maybe Lillian had forgotten to inform them that the co-founder was coming in today. But then I saw her. Lillian stood at the head of the long conference table in the executive boardroom, flanked by her hand-picked board of directors. She didn't flinch when our eyes met. No hesitation, no guilt, just cold calculation. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. The security guards stepped forward, their presence thick with unspoken authority. Mr. Carter, you need to come with us." The words rang in my ears, but I barely registered them. My wife, the woman I built this company with, the woman I loved, was standing there with her arms folded. Her lips curled into something between amusement and indifference. The boardroom was silent, a sea of expensive suits and carefully practiced neutrality. Some of them calm. "This company is mine, always has been, and now so is its future. You've become a liability, Marcus. It's time to move on." My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. My fingers twitched at my sides, every muscle in my body coiling. I wanted to shout, to argue, to remind her that NeuroSync wouldn't even exist without me. But I didn't. I had seen this look in her eyes before, the look she gave when she was sealing a deal, when she was crushing the opposition. Except this time, I was the opposition. I exhaled through my nose, forcing my pulse to steady. "You really think you can just erase me?" Her lips twitched upward. "I already have." The guards moved in, stepping closer, their unspoken command. Clear leave or be. Forced out, my mind raised. I could argue, make a scene, demand an explanation in front of the board. But that's exactly what she wanted me to do. To beg, to lash out, to prove her point. Instead, I smiled. Not the kind of smile she expected. Not the smile of a man who had just lost everything. No. It was the kind of smile you give when you're holding a secret that no one else knows. Lillian didn't know about the patent. She didn't know that I held the rights to NeuroSync, most valuable asset, the AI system that powered its entire ecosystem. So I turned on my heel, straightened my suit, and walked toward the exit. But before I stepped out, I paused, glanced over my shoulder, looked her straight in the eye. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." She let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Get him out of here." The guards flanked me as I made my way down the hall, their presence unnecessary. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to plead. No. I was going to burn everything she built to the ground. The moment I stepped out of the glass doors, the morning sun hit my face, warm and blinding. A normal man would have felt defeated, humiliated. But me, I felt something entirely different. Liberated Lilan thought she had one. She thought she had stripped me of everything she had no idea by the time she realized what I had done. It would already be too late. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in, slow, creeping like water, finding its way through the cracks. You don't even realize how deep it's gone, until one day the foundation collapses and you're left wondering how you did. Didn't see it sooner. Looking back, I should have known. I should have seen the way Lilan operated, how she calculated every move long before she made it. But back then, I wasn't her enemy. I was her partner. At least, that's what I thought. I remember the first time I met her. She wasn't the ruthless executive the world knows today. She wasn't standing on the cover of business magazines flashing that perfect manufactured smile. No, back then she was hungry, desperate. Even her startup, NeuroSync, was failing. It had all the branding, the funding, the marketing, but none of the actual substance. Investors were losing faith. The product was a mess. She had connections, sure, but connections don't mean much when you don't have anything worth selling. And that's where I came in. I was a software engineer, a nobody, really. Just another tech guy who had spent years pouring his soul into something that no one else understood. An AI-driven system far more advanced than anything on the market. A neural network that could optimize, adapt, and rebuild itself in real time. It was a passion project, something I had built in my dimly lit apartment, coding through the nights when everyone else was asleep. I didn't care about fame. I didn't care about money. I just wanted to build something that worked. And Lillian, she saw it. I was at a small tech summit, barely managing to scrape enough money together for a ticket. While others were pitching flashy, hollow ideas, I was sitting at a booth with a cheap laptop showing what my system could do. I remember the moment her eyes locked onto the screen. She didn't approach right away. She watched, waited, and when the crowd around me thinned, she finally walked up, arms crossed, voice smooth and deliberate. "You built this." It wasn't an empty question. It was assessing, sizing me up. I nodded. "I think we need to talk." That conversation lasted hours. She asked real questions, not just about the software, but about me, what I wanted, what my end goal was, and I, like a fool, told her the truth. "I don't care about recognition. I just want this to be used." She smiled. Not the polite kind, not the thank you for your time kind. It was the kind of smile that sees opportunity. "You have the brains," she said. "I have the resources. Together we could change everything." It was the perfect pitch. She told me about NeuroSync, how her company had the infrastructure but was missing the backbone, the technology that would make it truly revolutionary. "We can build something unstoppable," she said. "But I need you." I believed her, and for the first few years, it felt like we were equals. We worked insane hours side by side, refining the software, pitching to investors, signing deals. That turned NeuroSync into something massive. Massive. Somewhere along the way, the professional partnership became something deeper. We got married before the company even hit its first billion. It felt natural. It felt right. It felt like we were sealing our commitment, not just to each other, but to the empire we were building. NeuroSync wasn't just a company. It was our child, the thing we had built together, the thing we were going to share forever or so. I thought the warning signs weren't obvious. At first, little things. Lillian started doing press interviews alone. She brushed off my presence in meetings, letting investors believe I was just some behind-the-scenes engineer instead of her co-founder. And then the language changed. It stopped being our company, it became her company. When I started NeuroSync, I knew we were going to revolutionize the industry. The first time she said it in a board meeting, I actually laughed. Leland, we started it." She had just smiled. "Of course, you know what I mean." I brushed it off. It was just wording. What did it matter? We were a team. We were married. Why fight over something so small? But small things add up. Over time, they turn into something bigger. And then one day you wake up, Eb, and realize you don't recognize the person sleeping next to you. The first major deal she signed without me was when I should have seen it coming. a multi-million-dollar partnership with a government agency. I found out through a press release the official company website had stopped listing me as a co-founder. My title had been reduced to lead developer. The board no longer consulted me before major decisions. Lillian had quietly restructured everything so that I had no real power left. And then came the biggest mistake of my life. We should consolidate everything under one name. She had said, swirling wine in her glass as we sat in our penthouse. It makes us stronger, more stable. What do you mean? I asked already, feeling something cold settle in my stomach, merging our shares. The board thinks it would be more efficient. Why would they think that she had waved a hand dismissively? Legal stuff, nothing serious. We'll still share everything. Marcus, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. I should have questioned it. I should have asked why she was suddenly so eager to put everything under her control, but I didn't. Because I trusted her, because I was a fool, and so I signed the documents. I fined away my stake in the company, my official ownership, my control, and that was the moment everything shifted. Lillian smiled as she kissed me on the cheek. See, we're a team. This just makes things cleaner. I remember holding the pin a second too long before setting it down. Something in the back of my mind told me I had just made the biggest mistake of my life, and I had, because from that moment on, I wasn't her partner. I was just an employee, a replaceable asset. And soon, she would make that very clear here. Betrayal is a strange thing. It doesn't always come in a single dramatic moment. Sometimes it builds like a slow-moving storm creeping up in the background until it's too late to run for cover. By the time I realized what Lillian had done, I was already drowning in it. She had taken everything, the credit, the control, the company. She had rewritten history, stripping my name from NeuroSync legacy, transforming me from co-founder to just another engineer. But what she didn't realize, what no one at that damn board table realized, was that I had seen it coming and I had prepared for it. When I first built NeuroSync, I wasn't thinking about power. I wasn't thinking about boardroom battles or executive takeovers. I was thinking about the technology, the thing I had spent years perfecting in my small apartment, surviving on caffeine and sheer obsession. It wasn't just software. It was a living system, an AI-driven network capable of self-adaptation. And because I knew how fragile the tech world was, how quickly companies could shift, partnerships could break, and alliances could turn into wars, I built something extra, something hidden, a kill switch, not a backdoor, not some dramatic Hollywood style, shut everything down button. No, this was a patent filed under my name, a legal, ironclad document that ensured that no matter how big NeuroSync became, no matter who tried to claim ownership of it, the core of its software, its brain, its beating heart belonged to me. The patent covered every major algorithm that made NeuroSync unique. Without it, the company had no product. Without it, every contract, every agreement they had with investors and clients was worthless. I had filed it in secrecy, long before NeuroSync hit its first major funding route, not out of paranoia, but out of caution. I knew how this industry worked. I had seen too many inventors, too many engineers robbed of their own creations. I wasn't about to let that happen to me. But even after all that planning, I had hoped, really hoped, I would never have to use it. That changed the day Leland ordered security to escort me out of my own company. I should have been furious. I should have fought. I should have shouted across that boardroom, reminded them that I was the reason they were even sitting in those overpriced leather chairs. But I didn't, because I knew something. They didn't. So when the security guards escorted me out, I didn't resist. I didn't beg. I didn't even look back. I walked out with the calm of a man who knew exactly what was coming. Next, as I stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed. In my pocket, a notification from my personal email. Patent confirmed. Renewal approved. I smiled. Lillian had spent years erasing me from NeuroSync history. She had rewritten the story, cutting me out like I was just some disposable extra in her rise to power. She thought she had one. She thought I was gone. But what she didn't know was that I owned the one thing she couldn't steal from me. And now I was going to use it. The first strike revoking their rights. I didn't waste any time that night. As I sat in my apartment with a glass of whiskey in one hand and my laptop in the other, I did what Lillian never saw coming. I revoked NeuroSync right to use my patented technology. It took 5 minutes. A simple legal submission, a few lines of text, a confirmation email, and just like that, NeuroSync. The billion-dollar company my wife had stolen from me no longer had a product. The next morning it started. The first call came from an old colleague, someone who had been loyal to me before Lillian started restructuring everything to squeeze me out. "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" "Good morning to you too," I said, sipping my coffee. "NeuroSync AI is locked. We're getting notifications saying the company no longer has legal rights to the system. Clients are calling, saying they can't access their platforms. The whole thing is shutting down." "What the hell did you do?" I smiled, reminding them who built it. Then the news started spreading. First internally, engineers scrambling it. Teams frantically trying to restore access, thinking it was just some system glitch. Then the board found out. Investors started demanding answers, and finally Lillian found out. At AM, my phone rang Lillian. I let it ring once, twice. Then finally I answered Marcus. She snapped, "No greeting, no fake warmth, just panic. Something's wrong with the system. We can't access anything. The board is losing their minds. I know you did something. Tell me what the hell is happening." I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the rare sound of fear in her voice. "Good morning, Lillian. How's your day going? Don't play games with me. The AI is rejecting every executive login. We can't run updates. We can't process external requests. If we don't fix this, we're going to lose millions." "What did you do?" I let a slow smile spread across my face. "Nothing personal, sweetheart. Just business." She exhaled sharply. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth on the other end. "Marcus, whatever you did, undo it now." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "I don't think so." Silence. And then, after more dangerous, she asked, "You think you can take the company back?" I let out a short laugh. "I don't need to take it back, Lilan. I just needed to remind you who really owns it." The silence stretched longer this time, because now she understood she had spent years building an empire on a stolen foundation. And I had just pulled the ground out from beneath her feet. I lowered my voice, letting my words sink in and tell the board. I said hello. Then I hung up. By the time she landed in her office, the damage was done. The system was in lockdown. Clients were pulling contracts. Stockholders were dumping shares, and Lillian, the woman who thought she had beaten me, was finally realizing the truth. She had spent years trying to erase my name from NeuroSync history. Now I was going to erase NeuroSync from existence, brick by brick, line by line, until there was nothing left but ashes. I didn't go home. That night, I had no reason to. The penthouse Lillian and I had once shared felt more like a museum, now a carefully curated display of her success, where my presence had been reduced to an afterthought. No, I needed to be somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere where I could think, where I could plan, So I drove to the one place that was still undeniably mine, a small private office in a nondescript building downtown. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't luxurious, but it was functional, more importantly. It was where I had stored everything Lillian thought she had taken from me. I powered up my laptop. The familiar glow of the screen illuminating the dark room, the hum of the cooling fans, filled the silence as I typed in the login credentials for my personal development server, a server Lylon didn't know existed. The moment I gained access, I exhaled. The patent files were still there, untouched exactly where I had left them. Lillian had spent years convincing herself that NeuroSync belonged to her, that she was its architect, its mastermind, its sole ruler. But she had made a fatal mistake. She had forgotten who built it from the ground up. She had forgotten that the core of everything, the software, the security, the very lifeblood of her empire, was still mine. And now she was about to find out exactly what that meant. The first strike revoking the patent wasn't difficult. It took less than 10 minutes. A simple legal submission, a few keystrokes, a final confirmation click. And with that, NeuroSync's biggest asset, the AI system that powered its entire ecosystem, was no longer legally theirs to use. I leaned back in my chair, watching as the system updated in real time. The software that had once been the foundation of Lillian's empire was now locked away. Its licensing removed, its core functionality restricted. For the moment, NeuroSync would still run as normal, but in a few hours, when the system automatically refreshed, everything would change. And Lylon, she had no idea. And the first wave of panic. The phone rang. I didn't even need to check the caller ID, Lillian. I let it ring once, twice. Then finally, I picked up. Her voice was frantic, her usual icy composure. "Nowhere to be found, Marcus," she snapped. No greeting, no pretense, just pure panic. "Something's wrong with the system. We can't access anything. The board is losing their minds. I know you did something. Tell me what the hell is happening." I smiled. This was a new tone from her. Gone was the smug, untouchable CEO who had ordered me out of her boardroom. This was a woman desperate for answers. "Good morning, Lillian," I said, leaning back in my chair. "How's your day going?" "Cut the Marcus." She snapped. "I don't have time for this. AI is rejecting every executive login. We can't push updates. We can't access the back end and the client's asterisk." She stopped herself, exhaling sharply. "Fix it." I let the silence stretch between us long enough for her to start doubting, to start realizing that she was no longer in control. Then, finally, I said it. "I revoked your rights for a second." She didn't speak. I could practically hear her processing what I had just said. What you heard me. I said, my voice calm. "You and NeuroSync no longer have legal rights to use my technology." She let out a sharp breath like she had just been punched in the stomach. "You can't do that." I chuckled. "Actually, I can, and I did." The silence on the other end of the line stretched longer this time. Then, finally, she hissed, "You're bluffing." I almost felt bad for her. "Almost check your system logs, Lillian," I said, smoothly. "Check your client contracts. Check the patents you thought you owned." I waited, listened. She wasn't speaking, but I knew exactly what was happening. She was scrolling through her files, refreshing her dashboards, trying desperately to find a way out of the reality that was now sinking in. And then it hit her. "You son of a..." I smiled. Now, Lillian, no need for name-calling. This is just business, right?" Her breathing was sharp, uneven. "You think you can take the company back?" "No, I said simply, I don't want it back. I just wanted to remind you who really owns it. Another long silence, and then softer, more dangerous. If you don't undo this, you'll regret it. I laughed. Lillian, you stole everything from me, my company, my work, my name. You erased me, and you thought I was just going to disappear. I let my voice drop lower. No, Lillian, you're the one who's about to disappear. And then I hung up, and the full collapse begins by the time. Leland made it into her office. The damage was already done. The system had locked them out completely. Client requests denied, software updates, frozen the AI unresponsive. Every function that had made NeuroSync a billion-dual empire was now a corpse in a suit. The board of directors scrambled for answers, but there were none. And the investors? The moment they realized NeuroSync had no legal claim to its own software, they bailed. Stock prices plummeted. Lawsuits started piling up. By noon, news outlets were already reporting the crisis. Tech giant NeuroSync faces unprecedented shutdown amid patent dispute. CEO Lillian Carter scrambles to recover as company's core technology is revoked. For years, Lillian had painted herself as the visionary, the genius, the sole architect of NeuroSync's success. Now the world was finally seeing the truth. In the board's last attempt? My phone rang again, not Lilan, this time the board. They were panicked, desperate, trying to negotiate, trying to fix what had already been destroyed. Marcus, one of them, started, his voice strained, but forced into professional neutrality. We need to talk. I bet you do listen. Whatever personal grievances you have against Lillian, I cut him off with a laugh. Personal grievances, you mean? Like getting thrown out of my own company, having my work stolen, being erased from history? Silence, then. Finally, what do you want? I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then, calmly, I said nothing. I just wanted you all to know what it feels like to lose everything. And with that, I ended the call. As the chaos unfolded, I sat back and watched. Leland had spent years rewriting the past. Now she was watching her future disintegrate. And the best part? This was just the beginning. There's a specific kind of silence that follows a disaster. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of waiting, but the silence of realization. The moment when people stop fighting, stop denying, and finally understand that they've lost. That's the silence I woke up to the night before. I had gone to bed early, sleeping better than I had in months. I knew what was coming. I knew what the morning would bring. I let it happen. Naturally, I didn't check my phone. I didn't refresh the news. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat in my kitchen, made myself a slow, careful cup of coffee and waited. And then, at exactly am, my phone rang. I didn't answer immediately. I let it ring once, twice. Then finally I picked up. And there it was, Lillian's voice, frantic, stripped of every ounce of confidence, Marcus. She snapped her breath uneven. No greeting, no fake pleasantries, just panic. What the hell did you do? I took a slow sip of my coffee before responding. Good morning, Lillian. How's your day going? She ignored me. The sister system is down, Marcus. Everything is rejecting our credentials. We can't log in. We can't run updates. The AI isn't responding. Clients are calling in demanding answers. I know you did something. Tell me how to fix it. Ah, there. It was not. Undo it not. You can't do this. Not yet, at least. First, she wanted to understand. She wanted to grasp just how bad it was before she figured out how to clean it up. That was Lillian's way. She never panicked until she had all the information. Fix it, I repeated, fighting confusion. I don't work for NeuroSync anymore. Remember, you made sure of that, Marcus. Oh wait, I cut her off. Maybe you should check the legal department. They should have an update for you. The sharp inhale on the other end of the line told me she had already checked, and she didn't like what she found. You revoked the patent, she whispered. I smiled. That's right, a long silence. I waited, giving her time to sit in it, to process the fact that she had just lost everything. You can't do this there. It was the bargaining stage. Actually, I said I can, and I did. You're sabotaging the company, Marcus. She snapped her voice, breaking. Do you know how much damage this is doing? How much money is on the line? Oh, I'm well aware, I said, leaning back in my chair. I built the damn thing. Remember another silence, and then softer, more dangerous. She said, if you don't undo this, Yuke, regret it. I laughed, Lylan. Let me remind you of something. My voice was calm, measured, deadly. You stole everything from me, my company, my work, my name. You erased me, threw me out, like I was nothing. I let the words sink in before delivering the final blow. Did you really think it was just going to disappear? Her breath hitched just for a second. She had nothing left to say. Tell the board. I said hello, and then I hung up. I didn't check my phone after. That didn't need to. By the time I finished my second cup of coffee, I knew exactly what was happening at NeuroSync headquarters. Full-blown chaos. The system was in complete lockdown. Every executive-level login rejected, every internal function disabled. The AI frozen update blocked everything that had made NeuroSync, the industry leader, useless. And the worst part, clients were noticing the companies that NeuroSync had signed multi-million-dollar contracts with were now realizing that their systems were failing. Investors, once blindly confident in Lillian's leadership, were starting to panic. By AM, the company's stock had dropped 18% by AM. That number had doubled by AM Invest. ERS were already pulling out. The board was in a frenzy. They had put their faith in Lillian, believing she was the genius behind NeuroSync's success. Now they were seeing the truth, and Lillian, she was watching her EMPIR collapse in real time. And the board's first move? My phone rang again, not Lylan. This time one of the board members. I let it ring. I wanted them to stew in it. Finally, I answered Marcus. The voice on the other friend was strained, careful, measured. We seemed to have encountered a situation. I smirked. You don't say the system is down, so I've heard a long pause then. We need your help there. It was the first crack in their arrogance. My help? I repeated. Now that's interesting, because just last week, you all let Lillian push me out like I was some junior engineer. Now, suddenly I'm important. We can negotiate. The voice on the other end said quickly, we willing to restore your position, bring you back as... Oh, I don't think so. I cut him off, silence. Let me be very clear. I continued my voice. Ice cold. I don't want my position back. I don't want NeuroSync back, the company you all chose to betray. It doesn't exist anymore. Another silence then. Finally, what do you want? I smiled, nothing. I just wanted you all to know what it feels like to lose everything. And with that, I hung up again. Lillian's breaking point? I expected another call from Lillian, but it never came, not yet. Instead, she showed up at my door, unannounced, desperate. For the first time since this entire thing started, I saw her without the armor. No carefully curated confidence, no practiced smirk, no polished, culated arrogance. She was pale, her hands were clenched into fists, her lips were pressed so tightly together they were almost white. And her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were now filled with something else. Fear. I let the moment stretch before I spoke. To what do I owe the pleasure? She exhaled sharply, her jaw tightening. Let me in. I didn't move. No. Her nostrils flared. Marcus, I don't have time for this. Neither do I. I crossed my arms, watching as she struggled to hold herself together. We can fix this, she said. Finally. There is no we anymore, Lillian. For the first time in her life, she looked unsure, and I was just getting started. There's a moment in every disaster when people finally understand that there's no fixing it. Not through quick patches, not through damage control, not through carefully crafted PR statements. That moment had arrived for Neuros SN. By the time Leland showed up at my door, her empire was already burning. But she wasn't here to admit defeat. No, Lillian didn't know how to lose. She thought she could talk her way out of this. The same way she had talked her way into power, into money, into convincing an entire industry that she was the genius behind NeuroSync's success. She still believed that she could fix it. She still believed she could fix me. But I had already decided she was getting out of this alive. Not her company, not her reputation, and definitely not her pride. She was standing at my doorstep, looking at me like she was trying to find an angle. Something she could use, something she could manipulate. Marcus, we can fix this. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Fix what I asked. Pretending to be confused, you made it very clear. I had no place in NeuroSync. You had security. Dragged me out of my own boardroom. You told me I was nothing without you. So what exactly are we fixing? Her lips pressed together so tightly that for a second I thought she might crack a tooth. You've made your point, she said, inhaling sharply. Congratulations, you got your revenge. Now let's be rational adults and clean up this mess before we both lose everything. I almost laughed before we both lose everything, like I was the one with something left to lose, like she hadn't already taken everything from me. I tilted my head, studying her. And what exactly do you think I want? She hesitated, that told me everything I needed to know. She had no idea she had spent so long. Assuming she had complete control over me, over my emotions, my ambitions, my entire life. That she had never even considered what would happen if I decided to burn it all down. And now, she was looking into the eyes of the man she had underestimated. I let her sit in that silence for a long moment before I answered. I don't want anything, Lillian. Her brow furrowed. What you thought I was going to beg to come back, that I was going to negotiate, that I'd want to salvage what's left of your company. I took a slow step forward, watching as she fought the instinct to step back. No, Lillian, I said, my voice cold. I don't want NeuroSync back. I want you to watch it burn. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard, and for the first time since this war started, I saw real fear in her eyes, because she finally understood this wasn't about leverage. This wasn't about me trying to force my way back into the company. This was personal, and I wasn't going to stop until there was nothing left of what she built. By the time Leland left my doorstep, the damage had already spread far beyond NeuroSync walls. Stock prices had plummeted nearly 50% in just a few hours. Investors were pulling out faster than the company could react in the media. Oh, the media had smelled blood in the water. News headlines were everywhere. Tech empire in free fall. NeuroSync faces unprecedented shutdown. CEO Lillian Carter scrambles to recover amid crisis. The true genius behind NeuroSync insiders reveal the man erased from company history, that last one. That was my personal favorite, because for years Lillian had spent every ounce of effort making sure the world forgot my name. And now, the world was finally remembering who built NeuroSync in the first place. Not Lily and me. By now, the board had turned on her. Not because they suddenly realized they had backed the wrong person, not because they had any loyalty to me. No, because money was on the line, because the investors were furious, the clients were pulling out, and their entire careers were now at risk. I wasn't in the boardroom when it happened, but I didn't need to be. I knew how these people worked. I could picture the scene perfectly. Lillian standing at the head of the table trying to maintain control, her voice sharp, her posture stiff. The board members shifting uncomfortably in their seats, stealing glances at their phones, watching the stock drop in real time. Then, finally, the chairman clearing his throat. "Lillian," he would have said, in that careful, measured tone executives use when they're about to betray you. "We need to discuss your leadership position," and just like that she was done. And the call that changed everything by Am. I was sitting on my couch watching the financial news when my phone rang. Not Lylan, this time the board. I let it ring twice before answering Mr. Carter. A voice greeted me. Polite, careful. I smiled. "We need to talk." Do we a pause? Then, "Look, we understand there have been mistakes in the past, but this situation is salvageable if we work together." Stop silence, let me guess. I continued, leaning back into the couch. "Lillian is out. The investors want stability, and you think bringing me back will calm everything down." More silence, then? "Finally, yes." I laughed, not out of amusement, out of pure satisfaction. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, "I don't want to come back. I don't need to come back. I just needed you all to know what it feels like to lose everything." A sharp inhale from the other end of the line. "Marcus, we can fix this. We can." "No, you can't," I said simply, and that's the point. And then I hung up PM Lillian's new reality. By noon, it was official. Lillian had been removed as CEO. The board released a carefully worded statement filled with corporate doublespeak. But the message was clear. Lillian Carter was no longer the face of NeuroSync. And without NeuroSync, she was nothing. No more TV interviews, no more magazine covers, no more industry respect. She had spent years crafting her own mythology, convincing the world that she was a visionary. Now she was just another disgraced CEO. And the best part, this wasn't just a corporate failure. This wasn't just financial ruin. This was personal humiliation. Because NeuroSync wasn't known for its products anymore. It was known for its betrayal, and now, Lylan was just a cautionary tale. A woman who tried to rewrite history and ended up erased herself by midday. Lillian had lost everything. Her company was in free fall. The board had voted her out. The media was tearing her apart, and, worst of all, the world was finally learning the truth. She had spent years crafting her reputation, convincing everyone that NeuroSync was her brainchild, that she alone had revolutionized aid-driven automation. But now investors, journalists, and former employees were digging through the past. They were finding the old reports, the erased interviews, the buried articles where my name had once been attached to the company before she systematically removed me from history. And suddenly, her empire wasn't just failing, it was being exposed by 300 PM. She had nowhere left to run, so she did the only thing she had left. She came to me. I was sitting in my apartment watching the news, with my feet propped up on the coffee table, when the intercom busted. I didn't check it. I already knew who it was. A part of me had been waiting for this moment. I let her stand outside for a minute, maybe two. Then finally I pressed the button. Yes, a pause. Then her voice flat controlled, but with an edge of raw desperation. Marcus opened the door. I smiled. For the first time in years, Lillian wasn't in control. For the first time, she was on the other side of the glass, watching as everything crumbled, powerless to stop it. Why, I asked, casually stretching my arms. Because we need to talk. I don't think we do. Marcus, you erased me. Remember, I'm not part of NeuroSync. I'm nothing. Without you. So why would you need to talk to a nobody like me? Silence. I let it stretch until I could practically feel her frustration through the speaker. Then finally, softer, she said, "Please now." That was interesting. Lillian Carter didn't say, "Please," ever. I pressed the door release. She looked different. Not in any obvious way. She was still polished, still sharp. The same sleek suit, the same carefully curated image. But something was off, the tension in her shoulders, the slight smudge of eyeliner where she must have rubbed at her eyes the way she was standing, like she was bracing for something she couldn't control. For the first time since I had met her, Lillian looked lost. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. To what do I owe the pleasure? She exhaled sharply, stepping inside like she still had the authority to do so. Like this wasn't my space. "We can fix this," she said immediately, straight to the point. No small talk, no warm-up. "Fix what I asked," amused NeuroSync. I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the company you stole from me? The one that's currently being picked apart by the media, the one whose stock is crashing by the second that NeuroSync." Her jaw clenched. "Marcus, we don't have time for this. We need to act now, before what I interrupted, before you lose everything." Her silence told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't here to apologize. She wasn't here to make amends. She was here to save herself. "Marcus, listen." Her tone shifted, becoming smoother, calculated. "We can undo the damage. The board already called me," I said, cutting her off. Her expression flickered. "They did?" "Oh yes." I smirked. "They wanted to offer me my position back, restore my title, make things right, a sharp breath, and I said, no." That hit her harder than anything else. She took a small step back, as if physically thrown off balance. "You said, no, that's right." She swallowed for a split second. I saw something in her eyes, something real. "Why?" she asked. Quietly, I tilted my head, pretending to consider. "Maybe because I don't negotiate with thieves." That made her snap. "Thieves." She repeated, her voice, rising asterisk. "I built that company, Marcus. I fought for every deal, every contract. For years, Lillian had convinced herself that she was untouchable. She had controlled the narrative, erased. The past buried me so deep in the background that most people didn't even know I existed. But now, she was watching her own empire burn. And for the first time, there was no way out by the time Leland left my apartment. The damage had spread beyond her control. The news cycle had latched onto the scandal like vultures to a corpse. Headlines flooded the internet. Who really built NeuroSync? The man behind the AI steps into the spotlight, from powerhouse to pariah. The unraveling of Lillian Carter, every journalist, every media outlet that had once worshipped her, was now tearing her apart because the story had changed. No longer was she the visionary. No longer was she the genius behind NeuroSync's success. No. Now she was the fraud, the woman who stole an empire only to lose it all. In a matter of days, inside NeuroSyn, Chaos ruled. The boardroom was in full meltdown. Investors were fleeing, clients were backing out of contracts faster than they could draft legal statements, and the stock price had dropped so fast that trading had been temporarily halted. Leland had once held this room with an iron grip. Now she wasn't even allowed inside because, as of PM, the board had officially removed her as CEO. The company had no leader, no stability, no product to sell, and, worst of all, no future. At exactly PM, my phone rang Lillian. I let it ring twice before picking up Marcus. Her voice was different, this time not angry, not arrogant, not demanding. Just hollow. I didn't say anything. I let her speak first. I lost everything. There was no venom behind it. No blame, no attempt to twist the knife back into me, just acceptance. I took a slow breath, leaning back in my chair. I know another pause, then softer. Was this always your plan? No, I admitted. Not at first. But then you gave me no choice. She exhaled sharply, as if she had been holding her breath. I never thought you'd fight back. She said almost to herself. I chuckled. That was your first mistake. A long silence stretched between us. Then, finally, she asked the question I knew had been weighing on her the most. What happens now? I let the words hang in the air before answering. You disappear, Lillian. I heard her breath hitch. They won't let me, she whispered. They already have another pause. Then, barely above a whisper, and you, me? I smiled, glancing at my laptop screen, where the first draft of my next venture was already in motion. I start over without you, and then, for the last time, I hung up on her.